This is a dual-line chart plotting Cambodia's land use between 1997 and 2017. The first line shows total forest cover dropping rapidly from 61.1% to 46.9%. But look at the second line. During that exact same period, the total area of legally protected land climbs to 7.5 million hectares, covering 41% of the country. Drawing a boundary on a map and declaring it protected does not automatically stop raw resource extraction on the ground. The biological stakes in Cambodia are immense, harboring over 120 mammal species and 545 bird species. Dozens of these are already categorized on the IUCN Red List. Rapid infrastructure development and land clearing are actively slicing through these ecosystems. Keystone species are being boxed into shrinking, disconnected islands of habitat. A simple binary approach, fencing off a forest and hoping for the best, fails in developing economies. To ensure biodiversity actually survives alongside human expansion, planners have to run a spatial algorithm. Cambodia's 2017 Protected Area Zoning Guidelines provide a rigorous mathematical framework. They exist to negotiate the exact spatial boundaries between endangered species and human livelihood. Before any lines are drawn, planners face a raw, unzoned landscape of dense forests, varied topography, and scattered human activity. The 2017 policy mandates dividing this raw terrain into 4 distinct tiers: core, conservation, sustainable use, and community zones. These tiers are governed by an inverse priority gradient. The mechanic is strict. As the ecological priority of a specific zone approaches 100%, the socio-economic priority must approach 0, and vice versa. To zone a protected area, spatial planners anchor the 2 extreme ends of this gradient first. Only then can they define the middle. The algorithm begins by defining the core zone. We lock the priority slider at 100% ecological priority. Core boundaries are never drawn arbitrarily. They are dictated strictly by the habitat suitability area requirements necessary to keep critically endangered species alive. A single male tiger requires a territory of up to 100 square kilometers. An Asian elephant requires up to 800. If the landscape is already too fragmented to support a single, massive, contiguous core, planners rely on the SLOS principle, single large or several small. They break the ideal territory into multiple, separate geometric core zones. To prevent these isolated populations from collapsing, the law mandates mapping biological corridors. These pathways connect the fragmented core zones, ensuring animal movement and genetic flow. Human access in these geometries is strictly prohibited. The space is reserved entirely for scientific monitoring. These hard geometric shapes form the non-negotiable anchor for biodiversity survival in the entire system. Moving to the next step, we define the conservation zone. The priority slider drops slightly from 100% ecological, allowing for supervised human access and low-impact ecotourism. The primary geometric function of this second zone is to act as a physical buffer wrapping around the core. It mitigates edge effects. The outer layer of forest absorbs invasive species, hunting risks, and microclimatic changes like wind shear, protecting the pristine interior ecosystem. The conservation zone also targets high-value geographic features that lack keystone species but provide critical ecosystem services. Guidelines mandate protecting abiotic features like critical watersheds, water catchments, and terrain with slopes steeper than 35 degrees to prevent mass soil erosion and landslides. The conservation zone acts as the structural shield. It protects the core from the outside world while securing the water and soil logic the entire ecosystem relies on. Next, the algorithm pivots to anchor the exact opposite end of the priority gradient, the community zone. The priority slider slams to 100% socio-economic. Broad protected areas usually encompass existing populations. Planners must account for indigenous groups, standing residential infrastructure, and active shifting cultivation. The guidelines instruct planners to map hard, strict, geofenced boundaries tightly around these existing settlements. The legal parameters here are absolute. The issuance of land titles and residential expansion operates strictly within these geofenced borders. Management for non-local use is prohibited. Explicitly mapping the community zone is an act of containment. It respects established human land rights while preventing the slow, unchecked bleed of agriculture into the surrounding conservation zones. Now, planners address the remaining unzoned negative space on the map, the sustainable use zone. The UI slider is set to a perfectly balanced state between ecological and socio-economic priorities. This final zone floods into the remaining gaps, completing the puzzle. This territory is engineered for long-term national economic development. It absorbs necessary local infrastructure, ecotourism, and the harvesting of plant resins. Crucially, this zone operates under a negative constraint. Economic land concessions are restricted. Natural forests cannot be replaced by industrial plantations. The sustainable use zone generates the necessary revenue to fund the management of the entire protected area, without altering the natural characteristics of the resources. Step back and look at the fully completed 4-zone protected area map. It is incredibly complex, but if you toggle the layers, you see that the final borders are merely direct outputs of stacked data. Animal territory area requirements, steep slope thresholds, and exact village coordinates dictate the lines. The resulting protected area functions as a spatial contract, balancing biological limits against the pressure for economic expansion. By anchoring the extremes, quantifying the strict geometry needed to keep keystone species alive, and tightly bounding the legal rights of existing populations, practitioners can safely define the economic transition zones in between. True environmental protection rests on the rigorous translation of legal text into data-driven geography.